Provorov diving save. Hart as he flashes across. Briere sets up Carl. Side of the net. Deflected. Score! Briere moving in. Stop. Cuts to the middle. Still has a shot. Score! Here's Hughes giving it across. Oh, what a save! Save by Hart. Short-handed mid. He scores! Up top, cruising is Provorov. He scores! Ivan Provorov!
What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Flyered Up podcast. I'm your host, Amedeo and Grassia, along with my partner, Chris Maher. As always, we live stream on the Painted Lines, TTP Sports, and FLYERSFANMANIA 93, along with a bunch of other Facebook and Twitter pages. So if somehow you don't find us, we always post the podcast after on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts at. And also a little bit of a sponsorship, a little bit for me and Chris. So you get if you use $20, you get $20 off your first purchase with SeatGeek if you use either the codes TTP Sports or FLYERSFANMANIA. So you got hockey, basketball, football, baseball, whenever that decides to come back. You can use that $20 basically eradicates the fees. You can use that $20 towards a drink and a food item at a sporting event. So definitely use either TTP Sports or FLYERSFANMANIA at SeatGeek for $20 off your first purchase. So we're going to be doing a little bit of an interesting show. It's a couple of days removed from the Chuck Fletcher press conference, Chuck Fletcher and Dave Scott press conference, actually. So let that settle in. Try not to overreact to, like the day after, the hours after that, let our opinions actually settle into what we think about, the debacle that went on there. And then also try to answer, some mailbag questions from Twitter, the various people that join up here on the live stream in the comment section. We're going to answer any questions that you guys got. So we're going to go into our opinions first. Actual opinions on the Fletcher press conference in the direction of this team so far, and then we'll get into the mailbag stuff. So definitely leave those comments in the comment section during the live feed, and we'll also react to some of those Twitter responses that we got on our post earlier this afternoon. So press conference time. A couple days ago, Wednesday, Dave Scott, I hate hearing him talk. You got Chuck Fletcher as well. And so basically when you in the reaction state of that, press conference, it was very reactionary and people were not happy, which is very expected at this point because anything those two would have said was going to piss people off just because of where the team is at right now. Really, it's one of those situations where what did you expect them to say? They said the state of the team. They said what they thought, and that's where you have to go from here. They said some interesting things. They said some weird things as well that I question at the same time, but it is what it is at this point. And we have to see where this, ship sails towards, on the course of the offseason and the Flyers' plans. So, Chris, let's get your opinion here. So, everything about Chuck Fletcher and everything, they were talking about aggressive retool and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So, and, like the whole decipher about whether to rebuild or retool, it does not sound like this team is going to rebuild at all. Dave Scott said it himself. So, do you agree with the asset or the aspect of what they're going to do upcoming?
I do. I mean, I personally feel like for the most part, there's no really point of this team rebuilding. I've said it before and I'll say it again. You've already wasted Drew's career, and a lot of that. And again, I'm going to continue to mention that because it's very true, and it's something that they did for pretty much a decade. Why would you want to continue the rest? To waste most of the prime younger years of Carter Hart, Ivan Provorov, the rest of Ellis, the rest of Couturier, Hayes. There's so many guys I can mention. I at this point it doesn't make much sense to me, and I understand why people are like that, because it's years of build up frustration and build up anger and stress and sadness at the same time, because realistically the last two seasons they really weren't supposed to be this bad. So when you go back and you look at it that way, it's like, well, where are we now? Because again, we thought that going into this season, it was supposed to be different. We thought 2021 was supposed to be different. And it's, I feel like the whole thing of the press conference was expected, honestly. I mean, I didn't necessarily expect them to say anything. It's not like they're going to go out and show their cards. You know what I mean? I feel like it was more of just like, we feel, where we're at is obviously not right, and they're going to do everything they can to fix it. And I think some things were said right, some things I didn't necessarily agree with. But if I'm looking, like, I mean, I did my own kind of stream for it live, and obviously, as everybody knows, Amedeo did one for the pod as well. I took notes on it, and I feel like the whole Giroux thing makes sense because, again, I am essentially open to anything happening with Giroux, and I know that might sound like the most bland answer I could give you, but I legitimately can see him re-signing here. I can see him getting traded, and I can see him signing somewhere in free agency if that were to be the case. I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen there, and I'm not going to believe any sort of rumor or try to like kick into anything or like kind of give in. Like, if anything, it's when it happens is when it happens, and that's when I'll give my thoughts. That's kind of where I'm at with Giroux. Like, I don't really have a legit solid opinion on it. I think a lot of the UFAs, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, I don't necessarily see many of those guys going. I think a lot of the trade deadline is going to be those guys going for picks, and the Flyers will try to flip them maybe for a roster player back, or picks, because last year, I mean, think of what they did last year. It was Gustafsson for a 7th, Raffle for a 5th, things like that. So if they kind of go down that road, which is that would be my guess. I feel like a lot of the UFAs are going to go. But overall, I mean, I could see some of the guys staying here. Like, I personally would like Ristolainen to be here. I want them to keep him and be able to build on Risto, because again, he's 26, and he's still pretty young in the league. And again, I think there's a lot that you can build there with him. And same with the decor, because again, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Why on earth would you go out and get Ellis to trade Provorov the next season? And I'll continue to say that because it doesn't make any sense to me. Why you'd go out and get one of the better right-handed defensemen in the league and trade your number one defenseman the next year who just recently turned 25. So that doesn't necessarily make much sense to me. I personally like what some of the things he talked about, like Briere. I think him getting moved up into management is a good role. As for the situation of Comcast and the team being split from when Mr. Schneider passed, I feel like that was just, obviously they're not going to, obviously they're going to disagree on that.
Of course.
That's not something that they're going to be like, oh yeah, we think it's different. I mean, if you have to have a giveaway for every home game, something's wrong. I mean, even when this team was bad, it still was a sellout. That 14-15 season when they had 10 road wins, they were absolutely pitiful. And the amount of people that still went to those games, even though they were bad, it wasn't like the Flyers were that bad. And they were one of the better home teams that year. Then they had 23 home wins that year. That was a year I had partial season tickets. But yeah, I mean, look, it's definitely, when he says they want it to be a family event, then, that's kind of where I'm like, okay, because, one thing I will say, and I talked about this with Jamie Bascal, he said to me, he was like, dude, would people be caring about this if the team was winning? And I think it's a very good point, because realistically in the 1920 season, I don't think anybody cared that. You know what I mean? It didn't seem like any of these issues were a problem because the Flyers were playing well and they were one of the best teams in the league at the time. So that is one thing, because there are some things that I can nitpick out of it. Like, I do think they market Gritty too much. I've said that kind of since, obviously me and you have talked about that too. And
Great snacks.
Yeah, that whole thing, and the walking out of the Wells Fargo Center after the second 10-game losing streak, I got to be handed finger puppets. But it's just, to me, there's a lot of things that are an issue with things there. But like, again, I think that it looks like the Flyers have a plan, but no direction of what way they want to go. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like they have an idea, but they're like, it's like they have the idea in the middle, but there's like 5.
How do we want to pull this idea off?
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the thing.
And there's like some questions that I also do have with, I know I take anything what Dave Scott says with a grain of salt because he has no idea what the hell he's talking about. Because when he brought up the core of this team, he brought up Sean Couturier, Kevin Hayes, Ryan Ellis. Who else did he bring up? Farabee.
Farabee and Provorov, yeah.
I don't even think he said Provorov. I think he just said those 4 guys.
Really?
He never said Provorov. He never said Hart. And that just leads me to believe that this man has no idea what he's doing. He has no idea what he's talking about, man. I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to listen to you. But I understand why. Like, he also he apologized to the fans. He showed his frustration. I can understand that. But like, as right now, the face of this team, well, the guy that sits in the CEO seat, basically, like, I can't believe one word you say because you don't know what you're talking about at this point. You're not a hockey guy. You're just a guy that is like, I know Ed Snyder and Comcast picked him to be in that spot, but Dave Scott's just not a hockey guy. That's the problem.
Yeah.
If Dave Scott was a hockey-centric mind and he knew what the hell he was doing, maybe we wouldn't be in this mess, but this is the mess we're in, sadly.
Yeah. No, and I think a lot of it goes back to player development. And I think if they're talking about revamping a lot of different things and
blank checks.
The whole blank check thing, that's a very good point. I think a lot of what they need to do is kind of go back and look at it. And I think Charlie O'Connor hit the nail on the head. I mean, if you're going to sit there and talk about, changing your analytics department, your player development, why are you not looking into your medical staff? Because, I mean, dude, it's like every single player goes out, they get an injury, they come back way too early, and they're injured again. And it's not the first time we've seen it. This has been years of this. And I mean, I'm just talking this year alone. You got Hayes, who they openly admitted that they rushed him back. Ellis, same way. Brassard. I mean, it like nobody remembers. I don't think anybody remembers this because they were actually like so bad, and it's just one of them things where like nobody really remembers it because it's not as an important detail because they were still losing and everything. But Brassard came back and played one game and hasn't played since.
No,
and it was a 6-1 win against New Jersey. And today he was at practice. Not 100% there yet. It's like, it doesn't make any sense. Farabee, Allison, like there's so many different things of the injuries. Couturier, I mean, Christ, it looked like Coots was playing with an injury for a month.
Fletcher even said, I think the last time he spoke, that Couturier's been playing injured all year.
Yeah.
It just
it makes no sense.
How is he playing injured all year?
Yeah.
Like, what happened?
Exactly. It just doesn't make any sense. So if there's, and it's funny. I was thinking about this the other day, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on it too. Doesn't it seem like everything went downhill this year when they just randomly switched up the power play units on the West Coast trip in October? Like randomly, they just switched up the units. Then they had the 4-0 loss against Calgary. They never got back into the offensive rhythm after that. The month of November happened where it was like up and down, up and down. They won a game, lost the game, won a game, lost the game. First 10-game losing streak, Alain Vigneault gets fired. They play really well, 5-1-1, and then 13-game losing streak. And now now this is where we're at right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It seems like randomly when it felt like the coaches were kind of just like, all right, we're not, you know what I mean? And then they just randomly switched up something. And then everybody was like, what the hell? And then everything just went worse and worse and worse and worse. And that's where we're at right now. It's easily the worst season in Flyers hockey.
Oh,
easily.
Way the worst right now. Even though they were the worst team in the NHL in 06-07, what Ryan brings up right here. Fans still showed up.
Yeah.
Fans still showed up. Like, they weren't expected to be that bad this year. Like, they just ended up being that bad, but they had bright spots to look at.
Yeah.
And during that year, they had Jeff Carter, they had Mike Richards, they still had Gagne, they traded away Forsberg to get some pieces back. They still had a lot of young pieces that they built around. Holmgren came into the mix. They got all those free agents. They made all those trades. They got Biron, they got Briere, they got all these other guys, Lupo, Hartnell teaming in. And then they became a better team the next year, and they went to the Eastern Conference Finals and lost to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So they're like, at that point, Snyder, owner at that point, people were still coming to the arena. People weren't giving up on the team then. But this has been the worst stretch of Flyers hockey that we probably in their
literally franchise history.
In franchise, like, I know they had that they had that really stretch
Yeah.
Like they had that stretch in the what was it, the not the early 90s where they missed the playoffs for a consecutive amount of years, like after, the 80s and all that, when they lost to the Stanley Cup Finals to the Oilers so many times. Yeah, they had that stretch when they were bad. They got Lindros, and then eventually Bobby Clark made those trades to make the team better, and then they eventually got better with the Lindros era, the Legion of Doom, and then they were one of the more successful franchises. Sadly, they didn't win a cup in that era, but they were still a very consistent, dominant playoff team. Yeah. So, and there were many times when they could have probably gone to the finals and won it, but injuries came along. They choked the Eastern Conference Finals to the Devils, losing that series, that 3-1 series lead, and everything like that. They probably would have won the cup in 2004 if not for all the injuries against Tampa Bay. Mm-hmm. They still forced that team to a Game 7, but just this decade entirely has just been, like you said, probably the worst, 10-year of Flyers hockey that anyone has probably ever seen.
And especially because if they just let Hextall do what he wanted to do the first time, probably wouldn't have been as bad right now.
Yeah, and the fact that we had I think what makes it worse is ever since 1920, the team has had expectations to get better, and they marginally just dropped the ball. Mm-hmm. The year after 1920, they were expected to be better. They dropped the ball. COVID shortened season. Okay, all blah, 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 blah. Right. Fletcher goes out. He makes some moves. He revamps the team, gets some new leaders into it. Same shit happens. Mm-hmm. So at that point, you're at the stage where you're at now. You're on a 10-game losing streak, a 13-game losing streak at this point. Could be 14 tomorrow if you lose to the Kings. And at this point, if you keep losing and losing, you're getting up to close to breaking an NHL record at that point.
Yeah.
What is it? 18 straight losses is the NHL record,
Buffalo.
I believe.
No, is it 16?
I think it's 18. Buffalo 18? And I think it's
Buffalo.
And
they beat us to break it.
Yeah, I think Buffalo and Pittsburgh are tied for the longest losing streak in NHL history.
Yeah.
So you're getting closer to that the more you lose, and that's going to be embarrassing in itself.
Yeah. Can you bring up this comment?
Which one?
From Ryan. Why do you want Risto?
Right here. Brightness.
Yeah.
Okay, why do you want Risto? Do you understand the Flyers lack speed and all-around aggressiveness, up-tempo style of hockey? Flyers need type of players who are naturally gifted skaters with amazing speed. From Ryan S.
I wanted to address this because they have guys that are naturally gifted skaters and have speed. Provorov, Sanheim, and Ellis are three of those defensemen that are pretty fast and have all three of them can skate. But like Ristolainen is the all-around aggressive up-tempo style. That's why I want Ristolainen, because if you remember the year before, in 2020-21, when it seemed like every game of the 56, at least a handful of goals the Flyers would give up, someone would get bodied off the puck, easily taken away. Like they just did not play to their strength and their size. And a guy like Sanheim was one of the bigger culprits of that. So that's kind of why I want Ristolainen. Like, it's not like the whole thing of his analytics or this or that. Like, some people need to just let him play, and that's kind of where I'm getting at, because it seems like that there's times where, and again, I'm not saying like anybody in general, in the chat or anything, but it does seem like there are times where people will take this way too far, and I'm not saying like analytics or anything. I'm saying the Flyers in general, when they are playing bad, it affects their mood and everything like that. And for instance, do you remember last year, Amedeo, when I did the live stream and somebody came in and told me to F off?
Oh yeah.
After the 9-0 loss to the Rangers.
I remember that.
Yeah. That's kind of the what I'm talking about here. Sometimes you just need guys that are going to beat the living shit out of people. And that's what Ristolainen does. That's the reason why Mcewen should still be here. There's different reasons. And again, I don't want them to just get skilled. You know what I mean? That's kind of the whole thing. I don't want them to just get skilled in the offseason. I want them to get skilled and get tough at the same time. They paid a pretty good price for Ristolainen. It's, you know what I mean? It's not like they gave up a first, a third, and a third pair defenseman. That's a lot for, basically a 1-year rental if you don't re-sign them. So I don't know what they do, but that's the reason why I want Ristolainen. And also, my girlfriend and her mother are watching, so I just want to say hi and thank you for that. I appreciate it. But yeah, again, overall, I think I think that they should definitely keep Ristolainen because again, that's an aspect of everybody because again, once he's gone, everybody's gonna be like, oh well, the defense isn't physical enough. You know what I mean? Like it's just gonna go right back to the same thing. So
I think it's 50-50 with Ristolainen. I think they re-sign him if the price is right for them. I think they trade him if he wants too much.
yeah,
And I feel like that's not what he's going to want because how much he's getting paid? He's getting paid around 5.4 a year. I don't think he's going to go any lower than that. Honestly, I don't even think he's going to want to be paid the same. So I think he's going to get traded more than anything.
yeah,
Because I do think because his type of defenseman, his type of presence is valued in the league. Like you said, physical defenseman. And it's rare to find a defenseman, that's big, physical like that. And contending teams especially will give up something for him. And I know that you gave up a lot for Ristolainen. I think a team will give up a first round pick at least for Ristolainen. Maybe, maybe a first, maybe a second, maybe a prospect or something like that. Maybe something else in return, maybe just a regular player in return as well.
yeah.
I think more and more, this is my personal opinion. I think all the UFAs just should be traded if you're going to go with this aggressive retools strategy. I just think get all the assets that you can in return for all of these UFAs, and then go on that course from there. Do what you can do, and then try to build from there. That's what I think is going to happen. But definitely, I like all these comments that I'm seeing in the live feed right now. So definitely keep those coming. We're going to get to all of them momentarily.
Yeah, the mailbag questions as well.
All the mailbag questions. So even if because I remember seeing this on, and like even going back to Drew as well, I remember seeing one of the rumors about the teams that could be interested in Claude Giroux. I think it was Colorado was one of them. I think Calgary was one. The Hurricanes, the Rangers, and I forget who the fifth team was. I knew there was. I think it's Boston as well that was interested in Claude Giroux. So
yeah,
there are definitely many options that you can. I think the best landing points, in my honest opinion, for Claude Giroux could either be Carolina or Colorado. Because I think for Claude Giroux, like what you cannot sell low on him. You cannot get lowballed because honestly, if you do get lowballed in a Claude Giroux trade, that honestly could be a fireable offense because you did not get enough in return. And I think you have to go at the teams that one have a stacked prospect system and B are willing to give up picks. And I think those two teams could either be, even like a team like the Rangers, like they have some guys down there as well. I think they still have Kravtsov, who's one of their top prospects, even though they've had some indifferences, Kravtsov and the Rangers. So maybe you can pull him from the Rangers system. But I think the Hurricanes, they're stacked on center prospects. They have their prospect system is just loaded in general.
Yeah.
The Colorado Avalanche, I know the rumors were about Newhook, and the Flyers, that's a player that they would want from Colorado. I know they're trying to stray away from Newhook and go maybe after a guy like Tyson Jost or a JT Compher that Colorado is trying to offer in return.
Yeah.
But I think those are still maybe two of the best landing spots for G, just to, get that chance to try to win that Stanley Cup for him. Yeah. So you just can't get lowballed. I think that's the major point in this entire thing.
And it's also the same thing of like people can't underestimate what Giroux brings. Like there was a thread I saw earlier that was Tyson Jost, JT Compher, and like a B-level prospect. That is not getting you Claude Giroux. I'm sorry. I understand he's a rental, and I understand I personally, when I thought of it, I'm like, there's no way the Flyers are trading Giroux to a division rival. But now that I've thought about it, and it could make sense if it's Carolina, I could see that. I don't know the Rangers because it would make sense, but again, I feel like we'd have to wait and see. I personally think Colorado's probably the best choice. For one, the way that they've played. Two, I think just how much talent he goes into. And I think that's probably one of his best options out of all the teams to win a cup. It's probably Colorado. And again, I mean, I think there's a lot of different factors too that kind of go into it. I think not many people have talked about it. I think you have to factor his family and everything into that too. He does have some younger kids, so that is also a different thing. And I know that might not seem like it's a big deal, but for him and his wife, I would assume that's obviously that's one of the main things that they're thinking of. I think there's a lot of different options that can happen. Again, I feel like the whole thing with Drew is it's obviously going to come down to his decision, but at the end of the day, it's going to be so weird to me to watch a Flyers game without him on it because he's been on the team ever since I started watching. You know what I mean? It's very weird to watch a Flyer. Will be very weird if it happens.
Yeah,
to watch a game without Jay.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And just I like sometimes I do like the one thing I don't like with this, and like I understand the Flyers are very frustrating to watch, and the fan base I understand it's very like that frustration is warranted. You were allowed to be frustrated and all of that. I just sometimes I hate going on social media and see the way people treat each other on here. It's just that like why are you attacking each other? Like I understand you were all frustrated, but you don't have to attack each other for opinions that you don't agree about on how you think the direction of the team should go. Like, okay, just accept the other's opinion. Like, you don't have to go into this, nonchalant, well, not nonchalant, but just going at each other type of argument. Like I see some Flyers beat reporters sometimes do get into arguments as well. Just like some random, Flyers people on Twitter. Well, not even reporters, just fans in general that are just going after each other. Like, and just speaking of Claudiary too, like I see some people like for Chris, for your age, as instance, like you didn't start watching the Flyers until like you were you said 2013, well 2012, 2013.
Yeah.
So like for guys that are your age, guys that are as old as me, like I'm 23, turning 24 soon. I didn't get the luxury to grow up during the Lindros era. I was born right at the end of it. I didn't start watching Flyers hockey until Jeff Carter and Mike Richards were rookies. That's when I really started. And then basically the real mainstay that I've seen was guys like Simone Gagne. And then once Jeff Carter and Mike Richards were gone, it was Claude Giroux. Claude Giroux has been that mainstay basically my entire life as a Flyers fan.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. And that's the thing. Like, he's very undervalued. And I want to bring up this comment here from Mr. Crockpot because he's like, I personally never saw him as overvalued. I know there's so many people with the whole like strip the captaincy whole type of thing. I'm not having that argument anymore. It's a waste of my time. The whole thing with Giroux being overvalued, I think there's a big like Amedeo, I'm not sure about you, but like I feel like it feels like sometimes there's an even mix of Flyers fans that do this. It's like they don't understand the talent we have, but then when we actually like
lose that talent,
and then we will lose that talent, they're like, what happened? You know what I mean? Because I do feel like there is a lot of talent here. Like that's why I'm like, there's no point of us rebuilding. There's no point of us like doing this whole thing because, again, Bill Meltzer tweeted it before, and I 100% agree. It's not going to be 3 to 4 years to rebuild. It's probably like 6 to 10 is probably the average for it. And I know that probably sounds crazy, but there's a handful of teams that were rebuilding around 6 to 8 to 10 years ago that are still struggling now and haven't done really anything since. Edmonton is one of them. They've been average for a handful of years. They've been getting better, but they're having a rough kind of go right now.
The Devils are still.
Yeah, the Red Wings.
Arizona.
Yeah, I mean,
Buffalo.
New Jersey, Buffalo. Yes, there's many. Florida, it's taken them some time, but they're kind of at their
peak
point right now. Yeah. I think a lot of what it has to do is you have to understand the talent. It's not like it's NHL 22 where you can go and just trade everybody with the flick of a couple buttons on a PlayStation controller. Like you have to actually think and like value these guys because again, I'll say it now and everybody is going to call me nuts, but when it happens, a new coach and a new system is going to change a lot about this team. They're going to look a lot better. They're going to have more confidence. I think that's one of the biggest things with this whole thing is the confidence level from the previous coach and the coaching staff. And we already heard some things that came out about that and that he, obviously there was different guys that were kind of thrown under the bus a little bit. And a handful of guys even wanted to get out of here, and they did, Myers and Patrick, because of the whole coaching staff thing. But it's funny that somebody brings up the Rangers because the
Oh yeah,
Rangers
the Rangers are a rare occurrence of a
because
rebuild
you
going that
had
quickly.
I mean,
Because
you had 2 guys.
you have the luck of being in the New York market to begin with, and
Yeah,
then the fact that when they did start their rebuild, they got a lot of picks, and even like before the rebuild even started, they had some pieces that were set in stone. They got
right.
Shesterkin. What was it in 2014, the 2015 draft, I believe that
Mhm.
was, and then you also have a lot of their picks, like some of them aren't first round picks. Like a lot of their picks that they got over the years, especially in 2018, besides like guys like Keandre Miller, Kako, and Lafreniere, some of those guys aren't first round picks, but they
You
also
also
have
and
got some. You got Zuccarelli, you still got Kreider,
yeah,
you still got defensemen that you kept around.
they
But
also still had 2 free agents handpick their team in Panarin
yes,
and Fox. So that also helps as well, and that's what helps being in the New York
but
market.
Fox wasn't expected to be this good.
No.
That was the one thing that
Yeah.
was they got the stroke of luck right there, Fox being that good. But like you got
Mhm.
one of the better free agents going to your market because he wanted to play in a big market.
Yeah.
So the Rangers are just
It's
they're
a
an
rare
anomaly.
occurrence.
They're an
And
anomaly within this terms of rebuild.
yeah, and they lucked out on a couple trades, and I think that obviously that's advantage ad trades really helped them. There's been a lot of different things that they've done that's helped, and I think a lot of that kind of comes together. And Chris Dunn mentions Vegas. Vegas was an expansion team where teams only had like 6 months to really actually like plan for that. Seattle was like 2.5 years. So that's kind of why Seattle is, I believe, right now 29th in the standings,
I
and
believe
why
so.
Vegas ended up making it to the Cup final in their first year, because a lot of those guys were very good or undervalued or not necessarily, like Chuck Fletcher, for example, the first time with Minnesota lost Eric Halla and Alex Suck. And 2 of those guys were at the time Tuck was one of the best, wingers on Vegas. He was up there as one of the, handful of very good players in the league that year. And there's many different things that kind of go into play with that. And obviously Fleury, going there and still being one of the best goalies in the league. There's so many different
I
things.
also do think this comment right here from Jason is also important. Like, yeah, even rebuilds. If you're talking about rebuild, like it's not just first round picks that you have to hit. Like you do
Oh,
have to hit on
100%.
your late round picks too, and that's something that
Yeah,
this team has struggled with as well. Because look at
yeah.
Tampa Bay. Some of their picks
They have
are
some
from
gems,
yeah.
but sometimes a lot of it is, I don't know if it's bad luck. Like Lindblom was a 5th round pick and he was looking really good, and then he got the cancer diagnosis. You know what I mean? And then like obviously the biggest one's Carter Hart, because a lot of their very good picks that they got were first round: Provorov, Konechny, Sanheim, a handful of guys. But I 100% agree. Like again, and this is my point. Like everybody wants to rebuild, but they don't understand the talent we have, and then they complain when certain guys aren't playing well and give up on them the 1 to 2 seasons when they're here. So it really doesn't make much sense to me.
This is also one of the things I was talking about this with Hunter Brody as well. Like he has this one opinion to where he would be fine if they chose any direction. He's fine with the retooling approach, or
Yeah.
if they decide to go for the rebuilding approach, he's fine with that too. I think that's kind of talking back and forth with him, because he brought up some really good points. Hunter, I don't know if you're watching this right now, if you can help me with chime in here with like your full opinion. But if you're not here, that also helps. I can reiterate what you said. But basically what he said, like, because sports are just like this weird thing to where you can be, you expect one thing this year and sometimes the unexpected happen. Like say he brought up like something with, the Bengals, like 2 years ago, they weren't expecting, themselves to be in the AFC championship game this year. Well, that ended up happening with, sometimes the best things happen at the unexpected moments, to where the Eagles, the year before they won the Super Bowl, they were what, a 6-10 team, a 7-9 team or something. The next year after they won the Super Bowl, everyone wanted Doug Peterson gone the year before they won the Super Bowl and all that stuff. So yeah, I know this is like a weird, like, thing, but like, it's basically just sports are a weird thing and anything can happen at any given moment, to where we could talk about this Flyers team, saying that they should rebuild, like we need to do all this stuff, but then they can turn it around in 1 to 2 years and be a much better team for it because they made this like, aggressive retool approach, but then it also can't work at the same time. There's two different routes to this. It can work and it can also not work.
Mhm.
So I'm fine with either approach. I'm fine
Yeah.
with the retool approach. I would have been fine if they went the rebuild approach. And I think that's where I settle. I know I can understand the very frustration. If you think they should have went the rebuild approach, you're entitled to that opinion. It's perfectly understandable why you have that opinion, because build up frustration and you just want to see this team reset from scratch, and that's perfectly understandable.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, it's a lot of frustration that just builds up. And, like this tweet here from Chris, this comment from Chris, oh my God, I can't even talk, from Chris. We have missed on so many picks in the last 10 years. It's crazy, and very bad trades during the draft. Some trades have been decent, but they haven't really made many in the years that Hextall was drafting. He didn't do much. They didn't trade Shen for O'Brien. They traded Shen for Farabee and Frost. Those are the two picks they got out of that. And that, I think, is very fair trade for both teams. Shen helped the Blues win a cup, and Farabee's one of the best young Flyers.
Yeah, I think the O'Brien pick was actually the Flyers pick. The pick that got Farabee was the Blues pick.
Yeah, that was the 19th pick in that draft. Flyers had 14 and 19 in the 19th draft that year. But yeah, that whole thing. Look, I think that was more of just a something that, and I know they mentioned it before. When Bobby Clarke came out, he mentioned the Shen trade. Who did he say? Didn't he say the wrong player for that as well? I know he said Maher, but it was Heiskanen, and they also didn't he mention something else? It was the wrong guy.
I'm not entirely sure from the. I think the one thing for the Shen trade that he mentioned was just that no one really expected that was going to happen from the table there. That was a whole Hextall decision. Like no one knew he was going to trade Shen. And the whole thing with the Maher thing, it was real. I know there's reports that they're saying the Flyers actually wanted Heiskanen in there, but that really just shows you the entire discrepancy from that table in general. And like I understand that at the same time too, but I like what Bob Clarke did. Like sometimes I even think back to that, saying like, was that the right call for Clarke to do that? Honestly, I know basically at that point, that's just Clarke being Clarke. He always spoke his mind, like what was off the top of his head and what he was actually feeling. Like he's not going to hide his feelings. Like that's just who he is at that point.
Right.
But
and again, who's to say if the Flyers get Heiskanen and he doesn't come here and get injured like Patrick? You know, Patrick did have injury problems beforehand, but it obviously didn't help here in Philly. You know what I mean? Like there's so many different things. And obviously O'Reilly's one of them. The Flyers could have had him. Like there's so many different things, but again, that's the past, and where we're at now is where we're at now, and and that's why I've never really gone into like the whole like, oh my God, like especially with Alex DeBrincat, because everybody's like, oh well, they could have had DeBrincat. Yeah, well they got Carter Hart 4 picks before that. Like
you can also say everyone could have got DeBrincat at that point.
It's the same thing with Pasternak.
Same thing with Point
as well. There's so many different ones. I mean, again, you hit on the draft when you hit. It's not like nobody knows at that point. If anybody is sitting here watching the draft, rounds 2 through 7, and be like, "Oh my God, that guy's going to be in round 5." Yeah. Nobody has a single clue. It's luck, and it happens. And I think there's a lot of different things that can kind of work into it as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like development is one big thing that this team needs to fix. Medical, just basically everything around scouting and all that. I think that's one of the major things that this team needs to fix at the same time. And hopefully like those blank checks can be used to get some better scouting here, better development, better medical staff for this team to help them out for the long run, which would be very, very nice. But I also think we should get into some of these mailbag questions because there are a lot of people going on in the live feed right now. And we also do have some questions through Twitter. So this one on Twitter comes from @ZachAttack. And his question is, what free agents do you guys want to chase in the offseason? That's tough. That's really tough because honestly, the Flyers need a lot. They need a lot of things. And Chuck Fletcher did also state during the press conference that the one thing that they did lack was high-end talent. And are there any free agents this year that you can consider high-end talent? Are the Flyers going to go that route in free agency? If they do, really, I think guys that you can look at, maybe a guy like a Johnny Gaudreau, bring him back home to play in the orange and black. Maybe that, springs them up a little bit. Do you go after defensemen? I have no idea. But if you're asking about defensemen that you guys we want to target, Me specifically, I would like to go after Johnny Gaudreau. I just like the aspect. I've always liked Gaudreau as a player, and I just like bring him home just to see if that even sparks anything more up. But also, if I'm talking about the defense inside, that's tough. Defenseman, maybe Manson from Anaheim. I think he's a free agent this year. I think he'd be a nice fit in the top 6.
Anything Klingberg. You can go get Klingberg.
I forgot Klingberg wanted out. I forgot.
If you can get him, dude, go for him. Go for him, because I'm so over them. And again, this is kind of the build-up frustration that I have. I am so tired of them always being in the mix for getting the best guy and never getting him. Never. It was
it didn't used to be that way. Didn't used to be that way.
I know.
when Sutter was the owner,
people
wanted to come here.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It would be like, oh, there'd be rumors and the Flyers would be nowhere close to, it's just, it's ridiculous. And, I think a lot of what they can do is just do everything you can to try to win. Build the best possible roster you can, fit it with the cap, do whatever you have to do. It's because, again, you're at the point where it's like, how long are you going to wait? And that's how I feel like they're going to be. They're going to be, just straight trying to get every single best guy possible. And if they can do that, then that's great. Obviously, it's not going to work out because there's another 31 teams they have to deal with as well. But you get my point. I think there's a lot of different things that can kind of go into it. And I think there's a good, I think there's enough talent here to draw players to come here. And I think there's enough that you can build here as well to not have, as bad of a roster as everybody wants to make it. I do think a new coach and all that, and then adding new players can change a lot. So we'll see.
And the next question comes from Dives, Mr. Crockpot on Twitter. What's the bigger mess, Ben Simmons and the Sixers or the Flyers' refusal to rebuild? That's tough. That's very tough. The Ben Simmons situation is just laughable in its own point at real, like Shaq said it himself a couple of days ago. Like, basically that entire summary, like, you can just go listen to Shaquille O'Neal's comments, and basically that's in the entire feeling of the entire thing. But in terms of the Flyers, at this point, I know people are expecting rebuild, but then I think they were talking about this on, what was it, the 32 Thoughts podcast, and Elliot Freeman even brought this up. He even mentioned that it's just the Flyers themselves as an organization don't believe in rebuilds. Like, as much as we want to, like, at this point, like, I never expected them to. Like, as much as I would have been very fine with them rebuilding, but at this point, like, looking at the entire franchise's history, they have not rebuilt once in their entire history. So what makes you think that they're probably actually going to do it at this point? So that's basically my rationality out of that entire thing. So they're going to do this aggressive retool. If it hits, it hits. If it doesn't hit, you're in a worse spot than you ever were, probably, at this point. So
I don't even want to talk about that. I have no idea where I would be with this team.
Oh boy. You probably become a Pittsburgh fan. I don't even know why I said that, but
I couldn't do that to myself.
Oh man. So this one comes from Parody Goalie 79. How do you feel about the Claude Giroux trade talk, and do you actually see it happening? Yes, I do. I hate talking about it as much as anyone else, but at the end of the day, where the team is at, it's got to happen.
Yeah, I mean, again, I see all three possibilities. Anything can happen. I could see Giroux getting traded. I don't see much him. I don't really see anything here for him wanting to stay. Like, there really isn't anything in my mind that's like, oh, I think he'd want to stay here. Again, unless it's the family thing, but I think that's probably out of the picture.
Yeah.
What actually could happen is he could get traded and then re-sign with the Flyers in the offseason, but I don't think that'll happen. That's very rare. But if that did, that would be absolutely bonkers, because if the Avalanche, right? Somebody was just messaging. I was just talking with somebody in a comment thread about that. Someone was like, "Why would we give up?" And it was an Avalanche, and he said, "Why would we give up Newhook if Giroux could re-sign with the Flyers?" I said, "Would that matter if the Avalanche won a cup?" You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
would you take losing your best prospect to win a cup? I would.
Yeah. And I was talking about this with Jim from Flyers High and Wide. I think it was during their Royal Rumble thing, and he brought up the same thing. Like, at this point, if you're going all in for a Stanley Cup and you end up winning that cup, I think the Avalanche would be fine with losing Newhook if
I do too.
that means they win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, and it's not crazy because a lot of people do undervalue Drew. Like it's absurd, and
Like
maybe it's his age, which I think is ridiculous because
over this past decade, Claude Giroux is like one of the top scorers in the National Hockey League.
Could you imagine
power
him
play
in the
and
top
regular
six
points in general? Yeah.
with Landeskog, Rantanen, McKinnon,
Giroux.
If they keep Kadri, he's been rumored to come to Philly the other way. Like, holy hell, that team! If they don't win the cup, I have absolutely no idea what to make of the Avs because
if they don't win the cup, then they become the new Washington Capitals that can't get over the hump.
Yeah,
at that point, because they still need to be a team that gets past the second round, but they are a team that it can be really deadly come to cup time. Like, they're a scary team, and adding Claude Giroux to that mix, especially their power play. Oh my god! Like, even putting Claude Giroux on the second power play unit, he probably won't.
Yeah,
that's how good they are.
Dude, he can play PK. Like, oh my god.
And this question comes from the Painted Lines, which we are live streaming on. So at Twitter at the Painted Lines, is there a movie or a song that best describes this Flyers season? I'm gonna go movie here. I'm gonna go Justice League. Not saying that the Flyers have all the best players on the team in the NHL on the team. It's at the point where you went out, you got all different leaders and everything like that. Everything was expected to be better, like the Justice League. It was expected to be an epic movie. It turned out to be really shit. So
I'm gonna go Someone Like You by Adele. Because if it's Giroux and he gets moved, I'm gonna cry. I bawled my eyes out when Voracek got traded. Literally, I didn't even focus on the draft. I paused it and I just sat there and cried. I remember going upstairs. I was like, "Mom," I was like, "Jake just got traded," crying, bawling my eyes out. And if Giroux gets traded,
it's gonna be worse.
Man, it's gonna be like
you're gonna need to bring the buckets, man.
It's gonna be like
bring the buckets.
Broke up with me. It's gonna be brutal, brutal.
Oh my god, that's amazing. I feel the same way, man.
It's oh god.
This question comes from this is the last one of the last questions from Twitter. This comes from Bleed Orange BLA1. What players do you see Philadelphia trading, whether before the trade deadline or an off-season /trade? Any prospects you want to see get playing time this season? Takes on the upper management and plans for the upcoming offseason. Do you like how they seem to be planning things for the future with Danny Briere? Love the pod, boys. Thank you for that comment, Bleed Orange and Black on Twitter. And that's a big question to go through. What players do you see Philadelphia trading? Basically, at this point, every UFA on the team. That's what I see happening. So Claude Giroux, Ristolainen, I think it's still 50-50, just depending on what he wants. But then all the other UFAs after that, they're gone. I think so.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I don't really think there's much to
debate there.
Yeah, Chris put Highway to Hell. That's a good one.
Any prospects you want to see get playing time the rest of the season? So York is basically one of them. I think at this point, just bring up as many guys as you can and just let's see what they can do.
If wasn't hurt, he would have been still playing.
Yeah,
Ratcliffe, who's going to be making his debut tomorrow against Los Angeles, very excited for that. A guy who's really been grinding for it for a while, and he's a guy that a lot of people have kind of shut out of the whole Flyers kind of who can get called up kind of thing. Jay O'Brien is still in college, so there's a lot of different things. Again, you got to be patient and you can't panic. And it's very hard for some people, and like it's something that you really got to do, especially when you draft guys young. And I don't know, was O'Brien an underager? Was he 17?
I think he could have been. I think he was drafted out of high school.
Yeah,
the Flyers did, and then he went to college. He went to Yale, they went to the I think the Frozen Four that year, and then he went to the BCHL. I forget why he specifically went there, because he felt like he wasn't playing up to his expectations.
He's got 13 points in 14 games.
And then he went to the BCHL. Then he went. Where is he playing for? Boston University right now.
BU, yeah. Last year he had 16 games, played 16 points. He's got 13 and 14. He's almost a point per game player. You can't just give up on a guy after a couple years and they don't light it up. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. It's like, it's not like any of these guys we had besides Patrick were destined to be stars in the league. It's not how it is, and it's just an unrealistic expectation when it doesn't happen. The player gets full of it.
And also some of the other parts of this question: do you like how they seem to be planning things in the future with Danny Briere? I do like that, because we saw that the Flyers, I think it was talked that they actually tried to help hold back Montreal from taking Briere. So that basically shows you that Briere, they have plans for him majorly in the future. So I like, and he's been with the Phantoms for a little bit when they were missing their coaches.
Yeah.
I think he was in the
Fletcher said he helped the Tyson Forster pick.
I think Briere was also in the press box, I believe, I think the last home game against Dallas, I think he was up there with Fletcher and Flair.
He was. Mm-hmm. And one thing, the Flyers have had some good picks in recent years with Chuck Fletcher. I mean, if we're looking at guys that drafted, York is obviously a good one. I know everybody didn't like it at the beginning, and I was one of them that was kind of like, but then as it came along, and I was like, oh my God, York is a very good talent. Samuel Tuamala and this past draft, Elliot Dunoyer, Sadie Wisdom. There's a lot of good picks that Fletcher's kind of had here, and I think a lot of those guys are going to need some time. But again, I think if the Flyers if they fix the player development and they fix a lot of the different things there, which it seems like they're going to be revamping, and they might be trying to fix that again, then we'll see what happens. But again, it's tough. And, there's a big decision coming in July, because you have, as of right now, per Tankathon, the Flyers have the 5th pick in the draft. And by points, their points per game percentage, they're at a 0.791. And the worst team is Montreal with 0.548. So that's kind of how the ranking goes by there. And again, if you want to just look it up, you can go literally just look up Tankathon, tank, and then athon is how you spell it. And then if you just click NHL, there's a bunch of them. It's actually pretty cool. There's like NFL, MLB. There's a bunch of different ones. But
I just like that name, Tankathon.
Tankathon, yeah, it's pretty cool. And oh yes, and Bobby Brink as well. Is he really second in scoring? That's wild.
Wait, where? On his team?
On all of NCAA players.
Oh, he is. Interesting. That is interesting.
I'm gonna look up his stats.
Yeah. So let's go to the last question from Twitter. This comes from Edward Mayer. Hey Ed, how you doing? I know you're in this live stream right now. He says, based on how well their medical staff is, what are your thoughts on Hayes, Ellis, and Coots? Well, we brought that up earlier. We know the problems with medical staff on this team. For some reason, players are getting rushed back when they're injured, and then they get re-injured again, and then they're out for longer. Yeah. So yeah, they need to fix that.
Brink this year, going back to what Jason said, he's got 33 points in 22 games.
Interesting.
8 goals, 25 assists. He's a plus 28.
And he's playing for Denver, right?
Or excuse me, plus 20. He's 28 penalty minutes. Yeah, University of Denver, yes. Second year.
Interesting.
Or third year. Sorry.
This is his junior year?
Junior year, yeah.
Wonder if they will sign him to his entry level after this year. Who knows? I wonder if he plays all 4. So we got so let's go to some of these live feed questions, because there were a couple of them. Another one from Mr. Crockbot right here, Dibes. What is one word you would describe Claude Giroux's career with the Flyers? It's a lot. There's a lot of them. I would say, I'll just say wasted. I think that's the bland one to say, but I think it's just wasted at this point.
I have someone like used that plan.
I feel like that's the most common word. That's why I wasn't trying to use it, but I couldn't think of anything else. I was just
I want to say
blanking.
disappointed, but I don't want to say disappointed because I don't want people to think it's like, oh, well, he wasn't a good player. Like that whole kind of like, oh, he wasn't a good captain when nobody's been in the room and has any idea what it's like. It's just shame. That's what I'm going to put. Shame. That's my word.
Okay, we got a question from Soto. How you doing, man? Always welcoming you in the chat as always. Should Zach Mcewen stay? Personally, he thinks he's got an old school Flyers mentality. Well, Zach Mcewen this year has been one of their better players, so sadly, like he's like I guess your ideal fourth line grinder type of guy. Like he gets those high, even though like he does have some offensive potential. Sadly, he hasn't been able to finish this year, and I think that is one of his issues. He does provide some spark. He provides some energy. Sometimes I do think he makes some questionable fighting decisions. Especially, I think it was the game against Dallas, if I recall, or it was one of the past few home games, to where Zach Mcewen took a fight. The Flyers were winning in that point. So why are you taking a fight in that instance? But besides that, I think Zach Mcewen has been fine, and I think the Flyers do keep him eventually. So what do you think about that, Chris?
Yeah, I would say keep Mcewen. Again, a lot of what Zach has done. I mean, from what I've heard, Chuck told Mcewen to get an apartment. So I would assume that he would. I mean, that would be a pretty messed up move if he told him to get an apartment and then didn't sign him. But again, I think Mcewen, he's one of the guys that shows effort every night. You can see it in his game, and I mean, even banged up, he played, and he's at every skate practice. Optional, doesn't matter. He's a guy that cares, and he was a huge pickup. It's one of the more underrated pickups in Fletcher's tenure here, because he's a guy that shows that, and him and Brown are probably 2/3 of a fourth line the Flyers were desperately looking for years. And I think they have, 2/3 of that line right now. So we'll see.
So there's not technically a team comment, but basically Renee brings up maybe change the uniforms a little bit just because the Flyers boy look is a little toxic right now. So who knows? That's basically an ownership decision and what they're going to do. But the one thing, if people didn't see this, the reverse retros are coming back next year. So I guess we'll get to see what the Flyers do in terms of the reverse retro series. I think you said, Chris, before the pod, the Flyers from not basically they're going to go with the similar jersey style that they did last year, but they're actually going to go to the original of what the jersey actually looked like, the black jersey with the white shoulders and everything like that. So it's basically going to look like that original black jersey from what you said, Chris.
Yeah, that's what I've seen on Instagram, like rumors and stuff, and different things of what maybe could happen. People who like to make those
jersey mock-ups or
the mock-ups. That's one. I mean, what other way could they change it? You know what I mean? Like, unless you reverse the color, or maybe the Flyer just go with the imagine they go with the chrome.
Your dad will hate that.
Your dad will hate that. I have that jersey. I got that from you.
Maybe they'll maybe they do go outside the box. Maybe they do something completely different and bold. Who knows? Or maybe they do a white version of the 2012 Winter Classic jersey. That'd be nice to see.
I like what you're thinking there. That would be nice. Could you imagine that was white and a black shoulder?
And that would be nice. I've always said this: if the Flyers were to ever, I know that's off topic right here, but if the Flyers were to change their uniforms, either go back to the 90s look, or you do something completely different. You bring back the 2012 Winter Classic jersey, replace the cream with white, and then make a white jersey. Then you make a black version of that jersey as well. So you got 3 jerseys right there.
Yeah.
I think that's the way to go. One
jersey I think is pretty underrated is the Stadium Series. I like the Flyers logo in the helmet. I like just the way it looks. The
which one? The orange one?
2019.
Okay.
Yeah. The 2017 jersey, that's the same thing as their alternate now. I can't stand it. It's so boring. All it is black. It's black with the logo and has 2 orange stripes. One right at the elbows and then on the socks. That's it. There's nothing different about it. There's nothing crazy. It's the same thing every time. It's just that blue jersey mock-up is a disgrace.
I knew you were
Whoever
gonna bring
came
that
up
up.
with that should never make a jersey mock-up or anything like that again. They should just stop. That is brutal. Why the hell? Like, certain things I understand, but the Flyers changing their logo and their jerseys make absolutely no sense.
Remember
That does nothing.
what the Flyers were eventually going to change their jerseys into in the 90s? You know that
Yeah.
they're going to bring teal into
With
the
word
mix.
mark. Yeah.
We're going into that territory. Oh boy, maybe the Flyers bring that for a reverse retro. Maybe they do that.
Could you imagine?
That'd be very funny.
Did you see the Stars, Sergei Zubov?
Yes, they are beautiful, and
They
I
are
hate
beautiful.
it. And I hate that they're just a warm-up jersey.
Yeah, they should play with those.
I hate that.
Those are really nice.
Oh God. Let's see any more comments, and there's a lot of these right here. A lot of comments to go through. Oh, another comment right here from Dives. The ups and downs of the Flyers is unparalleled. They seem to be either a strong competitor or completely out of the picture. Yep, that's basically the entire summary of this decade, Dives. Basically, that entire thing. Other questions here. Here we go. One from Dave T. He says, "Hey guys, I am worried and I hope I am wrong on Carter Hart, but he is being exposed and it looks like an ordinary goalie and his confidence level and mindset must be shot. Does that make sense?" I kind of disagree with you there, right there, Dave. Just because Carter Hart has not been really the issue with this team at all this year. Basically, if you put any goaltender in front of this team, they're going to look average. They're not going to look like, the Hart stopper that they are. I know, Hart stopper. Yeah.
I think you tweeted the other day he's got a 912 save percentage.
Yeah, right now his even though his record does not look good, he's 7-14-5, 287 goals against average, and a 912 save percentage and 1 shutout. And I've seen
goaltending's not their problem. Their problem is they don't score.
Yes. And the one thing that I did see on those many analytic hockey Twitters, the analytics actually do support Carter Hart, especially at 5-on-5. So he has not been the issue. I think he's been a lot better this year. And honestly, if you're looking at his stats compared to previous seasons, so just basically erase the last season where basically I would say that's the outlier. If you go to 1920, his record 24-13-3, goals against average of 242, a save percentage of 914 with 1 shutout. Basically similar numbers. The goals against average is a little bit higher, but goals against is more reflected of the team in front of him. Mm-hmm. If you go to his first season, 18-19, his record, he was fantastic this year. 16-13-1, goals against average of 283, save percentage of 917. So he's basically been around his career average for his first couple of seasons. So I think he's looked fine. I think last year is the outlier just because of everything that was happening. And I think he's going to get even better. You just got to remember right now, Carter Hart is still very young. I know I see a lot of people for some reason that are saying, "Oh, I don't believe in Carter." Like, the guy is only 23 years old, and he came up as a goaltender when he was 20.
Yeah,
that's rare.
Yeah, that's very rare, and for him to have the confidence like he does, it's unbelievable. One thing I do want to go back to that I did just look it up and find was when we were talking about Bobby Brink, and when Jason brought up the scoring rates, he's first right now in points per game in the NCAA.
Really?
With 1.50
interesting
points per game in 22 games. And in second is Nathan Smith from Minnesota State. He's played 26 games, and Brink's played 4 less games and has a better points per game average. So he's having a really solid year down in Denver.
Yeah, definitely does sound
up in Denver, I should say, not down.
Yeah, definitely. He definitely has putting up some good numbers. I got Ryan here says trade for picks in the 2023 draft. I know that 2023 draft is expected to be very stacked. So hey, if Fletcher can pull off some of those trades, hey, I would take it. I'd take it in a whole heartbeat. What else? I think you were putting out this comment right here. No, not you specific. I think Ryan put this here when we were probably talking about teams interested in Claudiary. Minnesota could be one of those teams as well. And yeah, definitely that could be something that, Minnesota would look to add, especially like a guy like Claudiary. Justin says Flyers need to rebuild and stop putting Band-Aids on the problem. Obviously, it hasn't been working for a couple of years, so let's keep putting Band-Aids on the problem like the Phillies have been. Yeah, that's I can clearly understand why you feel that way, Justin. It's been a decade of misery. It really is. And like I said, I can understand both ways. I do. I really do. But right now, I would have been fine if they rebuilt. I'm fine with the aggressive retool right now. Just because I'm looking at this, like, try to think of this rationally as possible, just in the dynamic of sports in general, to where every year is different. That's what I'm trying to think of. I'm like, yeah, there are moments where I do overreact, and I do have those, like, outrageous opinions, like when you react in the moment. But when you sit a couple of days and actually think about it, I think I try to think more rationally about it. And I think, you can also just bring up, like, maybe are the Flyers closer to rebuilding, or the Flyers, closer to, actually turning this thing around with, a couple of moves and a couple of trades, actually, that could probably benefit the franchise.
Yeah.
You never know. Chris Dunn says we would love a used bag puck for Yandel. What's his plus minus?
It's a good minus what? Got to be 20 something.
Zycon says 23 minus 23.
Yeah. Yeah, Yandel has not been great.
Dave says, interesting with Giroux, reminds me of Timonen going to a contender, and win the Stanley Cup, I can see him going to the Avs. Yeah. There are definitely a lot of landing spots for Claude Giroux. I think the Avs are probably one of the best spots, them or the Avalanche. So it's when it eventually gets here, it's going to be talked about even more. And when the day comes when he actually does waive his no movement clause, that's going to be a lot more. The rumors are going to be piling in. Yeah. So you're just going to have to wait for that day eventually, because honestly, it's going to be eventually coming up. Let's see. That's a Pat. Who are you talking about right here specifically? Giroux, 90% of his salary cap. Then you can trade him to any team.
They're not in the position to retain any money unless they move guys around before they make the deal. But that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, I don't see that happening.
Carter Hart isn't going to win games for them if they're not scoring goals. So
we got a Philly Ghost saying he is really disappointed with the progression of Travis Konechny's offensive game. He easily should be a 15 to 20 goal scoring winger by now at the very least. Yeah, I think right now with Konechny, yeah, he's a very frustrating player. I think because wasn't there rumors a couple of years ago that Chuck Fletcher told him, or was this Provorov that he told this to, that they would have traded him, but we opted? That was Konechny.
Yeah.
So
they basically told him last year that they would have traded him, but they didn't.
So I can honestly see this point. I can see Konechny staying or going. I could see both. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I can see both happening.
Yeah. Oh, and the Carter Hart response, I was talking about this comment from the Wasp at the bottom.
There's a long way, Jesus.
Yeah, he has not won many games for them. He actually did when they were playing.
Wasp, what are you expecting?
Yeah, I mean, most of the games earlier in the year were won because of goaltending. They weren't scoring and they weren't having as much offensive zone time, but when they got the chances, they scored on them, and the goaltender had to play really well, whether it was Hart or Jones. Many games were like that, where the 6-3 win against Boston in the third game of the year, the big 2-1 win they had in Carolina, that was one of the best games of Hart's young career so far. There's many.
Hart was the main reason we even got to the second round in the playoffs.
Yeah, there's nothing to blame Carter Hart for.
Yeah, I just don't like. If it's the built-up frustration, I understand that, but like, I don't know why we're
don't put the frustration on something that isn't the problem. You know what I mean? So and Jason brings up a good point on TK. I don't want to give up on Konechny either, and he could be a guy that you use to make a hockey trade, but I think there's a lot of different guys that you could even say that could be a hockey trade, and that's nothing against your point, Jason. I'm just saying in general. But yeah, I mean it's so unfortunate because this is not where I was expecting us to be talking about this in the middle of January. You know what I mean? Like,
it's just also the one thing I want to bring up on Carter Hart. The fact that Carter Hart's still putting up his career average numbers on this bad team, it's not the problem. It's just,
yeah, he's been great.
Like, I'm not sure if it's just built up frustration to where people are giving up on players way too quickly to where they're not showcasing they're an all-star in their first or second year. It's just, like I said, I understand the frustration, but like putting blame on players that don't deserve it. Carter Hart is one that just doesn't deserve it right now because he's not been the problem this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's been great all around. There really hasn't had many bad games or bad goals or anything like that.
Yeah, I'm trying to see it. There was another. I think it was what is it? I think I can't find the freaking questions that I was on. Jesus Christ, there's so many. Where was I at? Oh my god. What was it? The big New York. Oh my, here we go. I think this is where I left off. Chris Dunn says 2 first-rounders and a prospect for G. I don't think you get 2 first-rounders for him. I think you could probably get a first, a second, or a third, and maybe even a high, even just like a first and a high-level prospect at this point. I think that's what you can get for Drew. But who knows? Maybe what a contending team gives up for. They don't care what they're giving up. They're trying to get Claudiary and go and win a Stanley Cup. So I could definitely see anything there. Let's see. More questions. Here we go. Ed says, off topic. What do you think is the over-under on tomorrow's attendance with the snow and lousy play? Minus 10,000? Let's see. With the snow in different areas of Philadelphia are probably getting different totals. Tomorrow's an afternoon game. People are really not going to want to drive in the snow when it's, just happening at that point. I'll say, I'll go below 10,000. I think it'll be below in attendance.
Probably. What was the attendance Monday? 9? 8?
Be below that, honestly. That's the thing, because it's all.
Come on.
What happened?
Has it been that bad? Like, are we at that point?
What?
Where the attendance is not even like 8,000?
It's patchy, man. It's patchy. For some reason, I thought you were reacting to a different comment.
Oh, no. I was reacting to that. I was like...
The attendance has been bad.
Oh, my Lord.
It really... Like, I Saturday, like, I know weekend can fluctuate things. Like, maybe more people can come, but then now you got to implement the weather and all that crap. People don't want to go to the games to see this team. Yeah, you could see a low attendance tomorrow for a Saturday game, honestly. You can. Man. There's just the attendance thing. And I'm in the press box tomorrow, so I'll definitely get a very good view of what the attendance looks like. Jeez. I'm trying to think. Jeez. This team. Like, you just need that break in silence just to think, like, man, it's really at this point. It really is. We got 610 Shame saying, whoever thinks we need the rebuild needs to get drug tested. Fletcher at least has to try to convince Torts. I see a lot of John Tortorella comments in this comment section. That's one of the main things that I'm seeing. Like, I think a lot of people have loved John Tortorella. That's the one thing. John Tortorella, I think, is a coach that needs to be brought into a team that's ready to win a Stanley Cup. Right now, the Flyers are not ready to win yet. Not even close. Until, they prove to us they can actually do it. So I'm not sure. I think the one coach that they're probably going to bring in is Tocchet. I think that's who they're going to bring in, most likely. I'm thinking
Claude Julien, Tocchet, or I said 3 the other day. I said 3 coaches, and I cannot remember the third one that I said. Now I'm drawing a blank. Julien, Tocchet, and I believe Tortorella was the other one. My dad probably remembers because I said it to him. Dad, if you're still in this, put it down there. I can't remember it. I think it was Tortorella. It was, Julien, Tocchet, and Tortorella. Because Julian's another guy who hasn't coached in a handful of years. Like, he really could help. And, I understand why people want Tortorella. I was one of the guys who in the beginning kind of said it. I don't know if he'd want to coach here, though. I know he has the TV deal. Same with Tocchet. So we'll have to see. But again, I think it would make sense if they were to get a guy like Tortorella, a guy like Tocchet, really any coach like that would be understandable to me. But we'll see. If there is one guy I want, though, I do want to add to that. If there is one guy I want, it will be Adam Foote on the defense.
Interesting. Yeah. We got a question here from Big Dog Status saying that, what do you think an aggressive retool actually means? From what it sounds like, I would assume that right now anything is on the table for them. in terms of, making moves, whether that's hockey trades, getting rid of all your UFAs, signing people in the offseason, and at this point, even maybe just utilizing that top pick this year to get a top player on the team, or just a top draft pick on the team and stuff like that. So I would assume they're going to do anything possible just to try to get this team better. So I know that's probably going to be a question that's thrown around everything. What the hell does aggressive retool even mean? So honestly, I know the Rangers said rebuild. They said it was going to be a rebuild, but at that point, you can honestly say, but how quick their turnaround was, you can honestly call that an aggressive retool at that point, what the Rangers did.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a full-on rebuild at that point. Like, yeah, they lucked out with a first overall and a second overall pick, but that's just the luck at the draft lottery at that point.
Right. Yeah, and again, like we talked about, 2 guys handpicked their team. And it wasn't just 2 random Joe Schmo. It was Artemi Panarin and Adam Fox. Like, and again, like you mentioned, Fox wasn't supposed to be that good and all that stuff. So there's many reasons why the Rangers were quicker than other teams.
Oh yeah, Philly goes, thank you for correcting me on that Zach Mcewen fight. I couldn't remember which game it was when it was he fought. Yeah, I do remember it now. He fought Chara, then the Islanders eventually scored a couple of goals.
Yes. Yeah, fought Chara. Islanders scored 2. They gained momentum from that. I didn't really like the fight from Mcewen at that point. The Flyers were winning. No. It just was not the time to fight.
It was like the same type of thing. I think it was during the San Jose game. It was Nick Seeler. It was the game in San Jose when the Flyers were winning and Seeler decided to fight, and then San Jose got a lot of momentum off that.
Yep. 100%, yeah.
We got another question from 610 Shane. Can we also change our corny ass goal siren? Hands down the laughing stock of the NHL. What is this, Six Flags? Wait, so are you talking about the goal song or the horn itself? So that's the if you're still in here.
Like that's the stuff to me that's like I really couldn't care less.
I know.
Like the goal song, like who cares?
The WAP says unfulfilling is the one word he would use that describes Giroux's time in Philadelphia. That's a really good word to use. Jason says, do you think York and Zamula are NHL regulars next season? It's set to the debate whether or not we need to be getting that much or getting much younger as a team. Honestly, I think they're going to give York, and I think with the shot that York's getting right now, he's definitely playing the rest of the season. And I think Zamula is going to get as many chances as he can, probably maybe towards the end of the year, closer to, training camp next year. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of things to do with those guys. So they have a lot of things to look with. And honestly, if you're looking at the offseason too, maybe what happens with Travis Sanheim now that you have a York and Zamula in the ranks, do you maybe use Sanheim in a hockey trade possibly to maybe get just another veteran defenseman back?
Yeah, you possibly. Could. Yeah, again, I think there's there's so many different things you can look at and where they want to go and who they move and things like that. But
another goal horn question. Philly Ghost says, yes, what happened to the goal horn? I don't know what happened to it. For some reason they like to make it short. Well, if they don't score, that's why we don't hear it.
Yeah. They've scored like 1.9 goals a game since the streak. It's not. I can't believe we're talking about the goal horn. Crazy.
Let's see. Jason says he likes the black jerseys from the mid-2000s. Another jersey question. Let's see. Flyers haven't played Flyers hockey since 2010. Losing Richards and Carter put us in a horrible direction. Teams would fear the Flyers and playing in our building, Chris Dunn says. Yeah, definitely a thing. Robert French says we should have kept Stolars. I don't think Stolars is the major difference into this team being anything. Let's see. Richards was the problem with that team. What do you mean? What do you mean with that? Haywood? Richards was the problem. I don't know what you mean by that. He also thinks that TK stays. He thinks he's all right. He's just mentally fed up this year. Chris Dunn, this is talking about Carter Hart. Our defense was a joke. We mostly screen our own goaltender. He does not blame Carter Hart. We let in so many last-minute goals. It's absolutely ridiculous. I crap myself every time the puck in our end in the last minute.
There's this one talking over towards all day long because of the current situation of the team from Philly Ghost.
Interesting. Yeah, I do think they're going to bring in Tocchet. I feel like that's what everything's panning out towards. I think that's what eventually is going to happen.
Yeah.
Phantom 28 says TK is one of those guys where you trade him and he thrives somewhere else. He feels like, I mean, yeah, that could happen at that point, but
He could be.
Yeah, he could be one of those guys, but I guess if it's one of those things where the Flyers do decide to get rid of him and he brings something back that benefits the team for the long run, I guess that's something that you willingly give up at that point. You have to, cut your losses, and it's something that benefits the team in the long run. It's like talking about a Claudiary trade. At that point, trading him, does the assets you get in return benefit the team in the long run? That's those answers and questions that you have to think about at that point. Susan says she wouldn't be surprised if they traded TK. He'll be added to the played for the Flyers, got traded, and won a cup group. The good old people that get traded away from the Flyers that go win
the
Stanley
one from
Cups.
Jason at the bottom. When was the last time you saw us win a face-off in our own zone before the power play? It's so true. It's like every time they get a power play, they lose the draw.
Oh god. So this is Haywood's response to the Mike Richards thing. Richards was the main party boy that laughed up his sleeve about a dry room, took Carter out partying instead of buckling down and playing hard. What?
I'm not too sure.
I don't know how to respond to that. It's IDE says, what do you think about possible trading Ristolainen? I think it's 50-50.
Yeah, I think it's 50-50 too.
Yeah. And we got Chris saying Richards was the heart of that team. The Miles saying the Islanders ended the Flyers season once again. Robert asks, hey guys, do you think Oscar Lindblom still has it, or is he done?
Lindblom's been much better as the games have gone on.
I wouldn't say
you're
he's
not
done.
giving up on him, and you're not trading him. So that's just it's not realistic to move him.
What else? Haywood says heart of the team, my ass. Really good player, but the locker room didn't fit. Primo, Pronger, I forget who else. I'm old, LOL. Pronger and Primo asked for them to be dry for that playoffs. Oh, I think in dry you're talking about alcohol. I feel like that's what you're talking about. For some, I'm just like blanking on like what you meant by that. I feel like that's because I know the rumors about Richards and Carter, they were party boys and all that stuff, and that's probably one of the reasons why Holmgren traded them. So I think that was one of the reasons. Robert says, honestly believe Ellis is a huge plus when he is healthy. Oh yeah, definitely. If Ellis was healthy, I wouldn't say that's the difference between being fantastic, but a healthy Ellis makes guys like Ivan Provorov better. Just a healthy Ellis would be nice. I think that's the
much better. They'd be much better if they had their actual players playing and not half of the Lehigh Valley Phantoms top six.
Chris Dunn says, who cares? The bullies went to the same bar every night and won 2 cups. When it burned down, they wore black armbands. Hockey players drink. Larry says, Kate Smith, where did they bury you? Philly Ghost says, the unexplained phenomena of losing power play faceoffs has gone on for a few seasons, and Gia's most of the times is the victim somehow.
Yeah, it's crazy to me how they have 2 of the best faceoff guys in the league on their team on the same power play in Couturier and Drew, and they still lose the draw.
Don't win faceoffs.
Yeah. Wild.
Paddlin says, what about D'Angelo? That's an interesting thing. I think there were rumors about that, I think, during this past offseason that the Flyers could have signed D'Angelo, but I'm not sure about that. Who knows with the way he's playing in Carolina? Who knows if he wants to stay there? So there's honestly a lot of things about that. Maybe even Carolina's getting his attitude in check, Rod Brindamore and all that. So you never know. You never know at this point what they can do. Soto says 2/3 of the Legion of Poon. Richards and Carter.
The Legion of Poon.
Oh, that's a classic. That's a classic. Man, well, it's been a long time. This has been a decent pod right here. Really good pod. Haywood says he loves G, but I don't remember putting in a full 60 minutes ever since G has been captain. Sucks to say. Okay. Not going to get into an argument about Drew.
Yeah, I'm not sitting here and talking about Drew.
Okay, so we got the Flyers' upcoming schedule. So tomorrow is their last game in the month of January. The Flyers still have not won a game in the month of January or 2022. So if the Flyers lose tomorrow, they would have lost every single game in the month of January to start 2022. So you got tomorrow against the Kings, and then you start off your rescheduled games after the Winnipeg game next week in February. So you got after Saturday against the Kings, you got Tuesday the 1st against Winnipeg. Then you have the All-Star break where you're off for 7 days. And then you come back home on February 9th against Detroit. That's a rescheduled game. Same thing with the 12th. That is a rescheduled game in Detroit on Saturday. Then you got 2 more rescheduled games with a game in Pittsburgh on the 15th and then the game at home against the Capitals on the 17th. And that basically starts off a very long homestand. And I mean long. I think this is
it's the longest in franchise history.
I think this is an 8-game homestand.
Yeah.
Starting with this game against the Capitals. You got Capitals on the 17th, Hurricanes on the 21st, Blues on the 22nd, Capitals on the 26th, Edmonton on March 1st, Minnesota on March 3rd, Saturday, March 5th against Chicago, and then to wrap up that homestand, you got Vegas on March 8th. So it's a very long homestand. And I think most of their final games are at home, I believe.
Yeah,
or
a lot of March is road.
Yeah. So you got after the Vegas game, you got in Florida, in Carolina, you're back home against Montreal and Nashville. Then you go on the road against Ottawa, back home against the Islanders. Then you go on a very long road trip at the end of March. Detroit, St. Louis, Colorado, Nashville, Minnesota. Then you go to April, you're home against Toronto, on the road against the Rangers, a home and home with the Blue Jackets. Then you got at home against the Ducks, a back-to-back road game against the Capitals, then a home game against the Rangers, a home and home series with the Buffalo Sabres. Then you got 2 road games against Toronto and Montreal. You got a back-to-back, a home game on a Sunday against the Pittsburgh Penguins, a road game on Monday against the Chicago Blackhawks. Then you got a Wednesday against the Winnipeg Jets in Winnipeg. And then to wrap off your regular season, your last game is on April 29th at home. It's a Friday against the Ottawa Senators. So, yeah, there is a long schedule ahead of us. And the trade deadline, I believe, is when? March 21st, I believe? Or March 17th?
Yeah, Monday the 21st, yeah.
So, there's a lot to look forward to, I guess. Well, honestly, you can't even say look forward. You're not even looking forward to these games. You're just looking forward at this point to the trade deadline because it's not going to get any better at this point. It's going to be a very long 3 months. A very long. So honestly,
yeah.
If you don't feel like watching Flyers hockey for the next month, the Olympics start next Friday the 4th.
Couple former Flyers playing.
Yeah.
Noah Cates for USA, who's still Flyers property.
Good old Jordan Wheel for Team Canada.
Jordan Wheel, Tyler Wotherspoon, Corbin Knight. There might be. Is there any more? I think that's it.
I'm not sure who else is. I know one of the. I think isn't one of the Phantoms goaltenders playing for USA.
Yes. Pat Nagel.
Yeah, I think that's him. I think he's in USA.
I personally know people are talking about the draft. I personally want Matthew Savoie. Already plays with Connor McLennan. The kid is
Cooley.
Electric.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot going into this draft that some people are, not as big on Shane Wright as you are going because he's not, performing the best in this year. So
yeah,
and knowing that Flyers luck, don't look at the first overall pick. Knowing the Flyers luck, that'll happen. It happened in 2017, and it might happen this year.
Of course.
God.
Ivan.
Ivan.
That's funny.
That is funny. Mm-hmm. That's funny. Yeah, there are definitely many names on the draft flip this year. I think this draft is supposed to be it's gonna be a good draft, but I think the 2023 draft is gonna be very deep, man. Honestly,
if I was the 15 draft.
Yeah, honestly, if I was Fletcher too, I know one of those comments was here earlier in this podcast. I would try to get some picks in 2023 if honestly I would, because you could really bolster up your prospect system in that draft.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you can as well. And I'm curious to see where they'll be at that point. You know what I mean? Like,
Never know.
yeah, it's very
They trade Drew to the Avalanche, get a 2023 pick, and or they get a first round pick this year. They get a conditional 2023 second round pick, which could be a first round pick if Drew either wins if they win the Stanley Cup or Drew resigns with them, and Colorado sucks that year, and we get the first overall pick.
Yeah, that would be brutal.
And we get to draft either Michkov or Connor Bedard.
Can you imagine Michkov here?
I both of them, honestly. I wouldn't care. Either of them. I personally draft Bedard just because he will probably be on your team sooner than Michkov because, the whole thing with the KHL. So he'll probably won't be on your team for at least 2-3 years.
And them getting more money over at home than
Vorobiev
is actually like killing it in the KHL. It's not surprising. Like, again, he's another guy who was not used right. It's so weird to me, man.
Yeah, it'd be funny if Drew was traded to an Eastern Conference team. How I know there was also a question too about when Claude Giroux is most likely, I would say, going to get his number retired. I think there was a question about saying whenever Giroux gets traded and if he doesn't return to the Flyers, does he get his number retired? Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, he gets his number retired.
100%.
He's one of the best players.
If you're number 2 in points and you're one of the franchise players and been here for 10 years, longest tenure athlete in Philly, he's been captain for forever.
I just hope before eventually, all the trade talk, I hope he does get to 1,000 games before the trade talks happen, because I know he's very close to hitting 1,000 games.
Yeah.
I actually want to look at that before we end off this episode.
So
right now, Claude, he is career 983 games so far. So he would need 17 more games to play to reach 1,000. So if we're talking about, tomorrow, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's 9 total going after the month of February. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 would get him up to March 17th. So
he'll do that as a Flyer before.
So
bearing COVID or any injury.
Yeah, so
as a Flyer before.
Yeah, hopefully just bearing injury.
Uh-oh, I'm losing you.
And I just saw the Wi-Fi cut out.
Yeah, I'm losing you.
Well, this is the best time to end the podcast then. So where did I cut out?
Giroux.
Okay, so his 1,000 game would be on March 17th. 1,000 game. So that's a home game against the Nashville Predators. So hopefully it gets to that point.
It would be nice.
It'd be amazing. Yeah. Man, what a ride. What a ride this is going to be. And what a ride this episode was. Thank you, everyone, for all your comments in this chat. Thank you, everyone, for the comments on Twitter, consistently watching us and everything like that. Thank you for everything there and keeping with. We're all crazy watching this damn Flyers team. So I think it's taking a lot of years off of our life at this point, watching this team this year. So yeah, I think that's going to do it for this episode of the Florida Podcast. Don't forget to check out the Painted Lines wherever they're at, to YouTube, social media, wherever. Definitely go follow them and hit their subscribe button. Definitely check our separate YouTube channels for me and Chris. TTP Sports for me, FLYERSFANMANIA 93 for Chris, and the same thing for our separate Twitter channels as well. Also, use our codes, either or, TTP Sports or FLYERSFANMANIA, for $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek. Definitely utilize that. And definitely stay tuned for the next episode of the Florida Podcast. There's definitely going to be a lot of off days within the next couple of, since there's only 2 games until the All-Star break. So we'll definitely do some stuff there. Maybe talk about the All-Star game and everything. Just, not focus on the Flyers. Be nice. I think this good comment right here, sum it up before the end. Chris Dunn says, good job. Blow it up, Flyers.
Yeah. One quick thing. If there's anybody in here that's interested in writing or anything like that about hockey, you can message me. If anybody's been interested in that, I'm got some stuff planned for 2023 or 2022, 23. That's all I'll say. But if anybody's interested there, let me know.
Yeah, definitely do that for Chris. So thank you everyone for joining this edition of the Flyered Up podcast. I'm your host, Amedeo Grassia. He is Chris Maher, and we will see you next time.